The day the acceptance letter arrived, my dad, a man who'd spent half his life hauling cement on construction sites, rubbed his hands together so excitedly he scrubbed off a layer of calluses. He carefully turned the gold embossed paper over and over, examining it a dozen times, murmuring, "Summit Crest Academy. Summit Crest Academy. My son's made it. He's going to make the family proud." 1. My name is Leo Vance. I have a name that hints at advancement, but a life that's been stuck in place. I'm a test prep machine. My philosophy is simple. Knowledge changes your destiny, and your score is everything. I clawed my way out a mountain of practice tests and problem sets, emerging with the top score in the city to clinch the single, full-ride scholarship Summit Crest Academy offers to a low-income student. Summit Crest, the most elite private high school in the country. A place where, legend has it, even the security guards need a bachelor's degree and the toilet paper is imported triple ply, soft weave. A money pit. My goal was clear. Crush everyone, keep the top scholarship, get into the Ivy League, land a six-figure job in a major city, and get my parents out of our leaky, run-down apartment. But on the first day of school, when I walked through the door of my dorm room dragging a scuffed-up suitcase, the flawless life plan I had designed began to crack. 2. The dorm room was a quad, with loft beds over desks, and the space felt sinfully large. But that wasn't the main thing. The main thing was my 3 roommates. On the bed by the window, a handsome guy with bleach blonde hair was leaning back, legs crossed, furiously tapping his phone while cursing at a mobile game. Christ, this useless support. Do you even know how to play? Do you? A pair of limited edition Air Jordans were tossed carelessly by his feet. I secretly used Google Lens to look them up. The price was more than my tuition and fees for all 3 years combined. Across from him, a guy in glasses was quietly typing code on a laptop. I didn't understand a single one of the green characters scrolling across his screen, but I recognized the watch on his wrist. I'd seen it in a magazine once. Patek Philippe. I'd forgotten the model, but I remember the string of zeros in the price tag, enough to buy a mansion back in my hometown. The last bed, closest to the door, was being made by a quiet, refined-looking guy. I stood awkwardly in the doorway, feeling like a vagrant who had stumbled into the Garden of Eden. The new guy, the gamer, glanced up, pointing to the only empty bed with his chin. "That one's yours. I am Chase Cunningham, the handsome one." The guy with the glasses pushed them up his nose, his introduction concise. "Ethan Reed." The one making his bed offered me a gentle smile. "Hey, I'm Alex Monroe. Looks like we're roommates. Welcome." I nodded, introducing myself in a low voice. "I am Leo Vance." "Just Lao." Chase snorted with laughter. "Leo Vance? Dude, the name fits. You're quiet as a mouse. Your wallet just as empty." The joke was cruel, and my face instantly flushed crimson. My dignity was the only armor I wore under my cheap t-shirt. I clenched my fists and shot back coldly. "Whether I have money doesn't matter. What matters is what's in your head." With that, I pulled my weapon from my backpack, a pristine copy of the Decathlon SAT and AP Prep Compendium, and immediately flipped it open and started working. I was going to show them that in this place, where scores are the only thing that mattered, I, Leo the test prep machine Vance, was king. 3. But after the first placement exam, my throne was kicked out from under me. I placed second in the entire school. First place, Kevin Price, a kid from the class next door who, like me, was on a scholarship. When I saw the results, my fingernails dug so deep into my palms, they nearly drew blood. Second place meant the $5,000 scholarship prize was cut in half. That was 6 months of my mom's medication. What made it worse was my math score. My best subject, my pride and joy, was a 0. I stormed into the registrar's office, pointing at the bright red 0 on my score sheet and yelling at the system administrator. "This is impossible. My work was all correct every step. Even if the final answer was wrong, there's no way I'd get a 0. Your system is broken." The administrator, a man in his 40s, didn't even bother to look up. "The system is the same one used for the entire state. Hundreds of thousands of students took the test without a problem, and you're the only one who's right? Go figure out what you did wrong and stop causing a scene." I'm not. My eyes were red with panic, my voice shaking. "This is about my scholarship. It's about what? You that desperate for cash." A contemptuous voice cut in from the side. It was Kevin Price. He stood there with his arms crossed, looking down at me, a faint smirk playing on his lips. Leo, you lost. Get over it. Stop embarrassing yourself. Is it that hard to admit someone is better than you? I couldn't defend myself. Humiliation and anger burned through my insides. Just as I was about to lose control, a hand rested gently on my shoulder. It was Alex Monroe. He'd appeared out of nowhere, looking as calm and gentle as ever. He didn't even glance at Kevin, just said to me peacefully, "Leo, don't worry. I'll handle this." He then took out his phone, stepped to the side, and made a call. His voice was quiet, and I only caught a few words. "Grandfather." "Yes, I'm at Summit Crest. A small issue. Right, the testing system. A friend of mine." He hung up and smiled at me. "Okay, just wait a minute." Wait? For what? I was completely lost. The administration wouldn't budge. Kevin was gloating nearby, and I could do nothing but despair. But half an hour later, the office doors swung open. A group of men in sharp suits hurried in, flanking a balding middle-aged man. Leading them was the headmaster of Summit Crest Academy. Beads of nervous sweat dotted his forehead as he scanned the room. When his eyes locked on Alex, he practically jogged over, bowing his head. "Mr. Monroe, what are you doing here? Why didn't you call me directly for such a trivial matter?" Following close behind was the balding man, whom I recognized as the city's superintendent of schools. I'd seen him on TV. He also hurried over, his face plastered with a sycophantic smile. "Alex, my apologies for this disturbance. The system had a minor bug our technicians missed. It's our mistake, completely our mistake." Alex just gave a slight nod and pointed at me. "It's not for me. It's for my friend, Leo Vance. His math score was miscalculated. We'll fix it right away. Right away." The superintendent, as if receiving a royal decree, immediately spun around and barked at the administrator who had been ignoring me. "What are you waiting for? Pull up Leo Vance's test right now and manually regrade it. If you can't find the problem, you don't have to bother coming in tomorrow." The administrator's legs went weak, and he practically fell into his chair, scrambling at the computer. Less than 5 minutes later, the result was in. My math score was perfect, the only perfect score in the entire city. The system had misinterpreted a key formula symbol on my answer sheet as a smudge. In that moment, I stood frozen, watching Alex Monroe being showered with apologies, then glanced at Kevin Price, whose face was white as a sheet, as if he'd seen a ghost. My mind was a complete blank. The worldview I had built over 10 years of relentless studying was shattered by a single 1-minute phone call from Alex. The grandfather he'd mentioned, who I assumed was some minor civil servant, was apparently someone who could make the city's superintendent of schools show up in person to apologize. For the first time, I began to question why I had fought so desperately to get into Summit Crest in the first place. 4. After the grading scandal, I became famous at school, not because of my perfect math score, but because I was Alex Monroe's friend. Walking across campus, the rich kids who had once ignored me now went out of their way to say hello. In the cafeteria, the server's hand no longer trembled when she dished out my food. The meat was piled high on my plate. Even Kevin Price, who had sneered at me before, now avoided me, his eyes filled with a mixture of awe and jealousy. I knew none of this had anything to do with me. They weren't respecting Leo Vance. They were respecting the person standing behind me, Alex Monroe. It was a strange feeling, like wearing an ill-fitting, expensive coat. It looked great to others, but only I knew how awkward and uncomfortable it felt underneath. I tried to repay them in my own way, to maintain this incredibly unbalanced friendship. "Chase, you drew the auxiliary line on this geometry problem wrong," I said, pointing to his test paper and patiently explaining. "You should draw a perpendicular from point C to line AB, then use the Pythagorean theorem." Chase, who was wearing headphones and playing a game, pulled one off impatiently. "Huh? What? Dude, Leo, stop. My head hurts just looking at it. On the real test, I'll just guess C and move on. What if you guess wrong? This is 5 points." I pressed. 5 points. Chase pulled a thick wad of $100 bills from his wallet and slapped it on the table. "Here's 10 grand. You do my homework for the rest of the year. Is that enough?" I stared at the crisp new bills, my face burning. My dignity, my knowledge, was worth only $10,000 to him. No, maybe not even that. It was just a number he threw out without a second thought. I took a deep breath, pushed the money back, and said, word by word, Chase, knowledge is priceless. Yeah, priceless, sure. Chase waved his hand dismissively and put his headphones back on. You're the man, Leo. You're the smartest. Now, can you let me rank up in peace? Shot down, I turned to Ethan. He was tinkering with a collection of metal parts one didn't recognize, surrounded by an array of precision tools. Ethan, there's a presentation competition next week. First prize is $3,000. Want to team up? I asked, thinking his computer skills would give us a winning edge. Ethan didn't look up. Not interested, he said flatly. It's $3,000. That's enough to cover my food for a month. He finally stopped what he was doing and looked up. He pointed at my laptop, a second-hand machine that took a full minute to boot and stuttered when running PowerPoint. With that, yeah, it's old, but it still works, I said, a little embarrassed. He didn't say anything. He just turned his own laptop towards me and opened a file. A 3D modeling program I had never seen before filled the screen. As his fingers danced across the trackpad, a detailed cyberpunk-style city materialized before my eyes, complete with cinematic lighting and particle effects that rivaled a Hollywood sci-fi movie. I threw this together last week, he said calmly. It took 2 hours to render on my private server. Your laptop would probably take 3 days to render a single frame. My mouth hung open, but no words came out. My pride, my hard work, felt like a joke in front of them. I thought I was helping them by teaching them how to study and save money, showing them a slice of the real world. But in ways I couldn't comprehend, they were showing me that my reality was just their playground. 5. When the cafeteria food was bland, I showed them how to spice up rice with sriracha. The next day, Chase's family bought out the cafeteria's food supplier and brought in a team of Michelin-starred chefs. The menu changed daily. Lobster and steak became standard fare. As I stared at the menu, dumbfounded, Chase slapped me on the shoulder and said, Leo, from now on, order whatever you want. Put on my tab. Stop eating those sad-looking bagels. It's depressing to watch. During gym class, I accidentally bumped into the school bully, Brad, while going for a rebound. He shoved me to the ground, jabbing a finger in my face. Watch it, scholarship kid. Are you blind? Do you know how much this jersey costs? You couldn't afford it if you sold yourself. I was shaking with anger and about to argue when Ethan, who had been sitting quietly on the bleachers reading on his tablet, silently put it away. The next day, a notice was posted on the campus bulletin board. Brad was expelled for a history of bullying, extortion, and academic cheating. The attached evidence included over a dozen high-definition video clips, filmed from impossibly clever angles. It even showed him smoking in the bathroom. No one knew where the videos came from. Only I did. During gym class that day, a tiny black drone, smaller than a fly, had been hovering silently above Ethan's head. I started to feel a sense of fear. I was like Gulliver in the land of giants. Their casual actions were earth-shattering events in my world. The gap between us wasn't just about money or status. It was about our entire perception of reality. We were living in 2 different universes, governed by 2 completely different sets of laws. And I was being pulled into theirs. I tried desperately to hold on to my crumbling identity as the top student to preserve my last shred of dignity. But the appearance of one person ripped away even that final veil. 6. It was the night of the Summit Crest Academy Board of Directors annual gala. Normally, an event like this would have nothing to do with me. But the headmaster sought me out, his face beaming. Leo, you're the pride of Summit Crest. I'd like you to attend the gala. It's a good opportunity to meet some influential people. It will be beneficial for your future. I believed him. I thought it was the school's way of recognizing my achievements. Wearing my only decent white button-down, I stood awkwardly in the glittering ballroom, feeling like one of the waiters. Then I saw him. The headmaster was fawning over a man in a tailored suit who radiated power. Standing next to that man was my arch-rival, Kevin Price. Mr. Stratford, this is my son, Kevin. He was fortunate enough to place first in the last exams, Kevin's father announced, his face glowing with pride. The man, addressed as Mr. Stratford, Warren Stratford, the biggest shareholder of Summit Crest Academy, nodded, but his gaze drifted past Kevin and landed on me. He sized me up. You must be Leo Vance, he said, beckoning me over. Confused, I walked toward him. Warren Stratford circled me, nodding in satisfaction. He then turned to the headmaster and said, "Yes, he's good stock. Physique, looks, intelligence. All top tier. Better than last year's candidate." I froze. What did he mean by that? Stratford ignored my confusion and turned back to Kevin's father with a smile. "Frank, your son's grades are indeed excellent. But unfortunately, there's only one spot in the Vanguard project this year." "The Vanguard project?" I asked instinctively. Stratford finally looked me in the eye, a knowing smirk on his lips. "It seems the headmaster hasn't filled you in yet." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Congratulations, Leo. You've been selected. From this day forward, you no longer have to worry about tuition or making ends meet. We will provide you with the best resources, send you abroad for higher education, and shape you into a world-class talent. As for your family, we'll take care of them, too. They will want for nothing." My heart began to pound. A sense of dread washed over me. There's no such thing as a free lunch. I knew that better than anyone. My voice trembled as I asked, What do I have to do in return?" Stratford smiled, a cruel, arrogant expression that screamed of absolute control. "Your future." He handed me a portfolio. The title read, "The Vanguard Project, a Directed Talent Cultivation Agreement." I flipped through the pages, my blood running colder with every word. The agreement stipulated that upon graduation, I would be required to work for Stratford's corporation unconditionally for 30 years. During this period, all my research, patents, and inventions would belong to the corporation. My marriage, my family, even my decision to have children, would require the corporation's approval. The moment I signed this, my life would no longer be my own. I would become their meticulously groomed canary in a golden cage, a tool that lays golden eggs. I fought my way up from the bottom, not to trade one cage for a fancier one. "So," Stratford watched my pale face, enjoying the moment. "Sign it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for someone like you. Kevin here is dying for a chance, and I haven't even offered it to him." Beside him, Kevin Price stared at the agreement, his eyes burning with undisguised longing and jealousy. I lifted my head and looked at Stratford's smug, expectant face. A wave of rage and humiliation I had never felt before crashed through my reason. I grabbed a glass of juice from a nearby table and flung its contents squarely in his face. "To hell with your Vanguard project," I roared. "I, Leo Vance, will never be your dog." The entire ballroom fell silent. Everyone stared, frozen, at me and the dripping, pathetic figure of Warren Stratford. Stratford wiped the juice from his face, his eyes glinting with malice. He glared at me, forcing the words through his clenched teeth. "You are finished." The headmaster was the first to react, snapping out of his shock in a sheer panic. He grabbed me, bowing repeatedly to Stratford. "Mr. Stratford, please calm down. He's just a kid. He doesn't know any better. He's just a foolish kid." Kevin's father rushed over to smooth things over, making sure to throw me under the bus. "Warren, don't lower yourself to this ungrateful punk's level. He's insane." Kevin just watched me with a look of pure schadenfreude, as if he could already see my grim future. 2 security guards seized me, and I couldn't move. But I didn't struggle. I just stared coldly at Warren Stratford. That glass of juice had washed away all my fear, leaving only the grim resolve of someone with nothing left to lose. I thought I was done for. Expulsion, lawsuits, maybe even juvenile detention. The future I had spent 10 years of grueling study to build had just turned to ash. But just as Stratford was about to explode, a lazy voice drifted from a corner of the room. "Well, what's all the fuss about?" It was Chase. He strolled over, sipping a bubble tea, flanked by a coolly indifferent Ethan and a perfectly calm Alex. The 3 of them looked like they had just stepped out of another dimension, completely out of sync with the tense atmosphere. Chase scanned the scene, his eyes lingering on me for a second before landing on Stratford's face. He let out an exaggerated gasp. "Uncle Warren, what's this? Performance art? Trying to look like a tomato?" Seeing Chase, Stratford's vicious expression softened slightly. He forced a smile that was uglier than a grimace. "Chase, my boy, what are you doing here? I thought your father was in Dubai, closing a deal." "My dad's in Dubai, but I'm not," Chase said with a shrug, swirling his bubble tea. "Heard the school had some good food tonight." so I came to crash the party. What? Not welcome, Uncle Warren. Welcome. Of course you're welcome. Stratford's humility was so jarring it felt alien. Glad to hear it. Chase turned his attention back to me and raised an eyebrow. So what's going on here, Uncle Warren? You throwing your weight around, picking on my boy. His words, my boy, were spoken so casually, yet they landed like a bomb in the ballroom. The color drained from Stratford's face. He glanced from Chase to me, clearly trying to weigh his options. Just then, Alex stepped forward. He still wore his gentle expression and gave Stratford a slight nod. Mr. Stratford, my roommate, is young and has a bit of a temper. If he's offended you in any way, I apologize on his behalf. His words sounded like an apology, but his tone held no trace of it. Sweat started to form on Stratford's forehead. One Chase Cunningham was bad enough. Now he had to deal with Alex Monroe, whose background was a complete mystery, but clearly terrifying. He managed a stiff smile. Alex, you're here too. It's all a misunderstanding. A simple misunderstanding. I was just discussing future career plans with Leo. Is that so? Ethan, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke up. He held up his phone, which was playing a video. On the screen was the entire scene from moments before, Stratford pressuring me to sign a contract and me throwing the juice in his face. The video was crystal clear, the audio perfect. It had even captured Stratford's sneer, "I'll make you my dog. Your discussion methods are rather unique, Mr. Stratford," Ethan said flatly. Stratford's face turned a deathly gray. He knew he had lost. Chase's father was the CEO of Cunningham Holdings, a real estate titan who controlled half the industry in the state and was the primary contractor for Summit Crest's massive expansion projects. Pissing him off meant Stratford's interest at the school would be dead in the water. Ethan, with his technical prowess, could not only record the whole thing without anyone noticing, but could also upload it everywhere online. Stratford Corporation was obsessed with its public image. A scandal like the Vanguard project, which preyed on talented students, would send its stock price into a nosedive. And Alex Monroe, Stratford didn't even dare to imagine the power behind him. 3 mountains had just fallen on him at once. A misunderstanding. It was truly a misunderstanding. Stratford did a complete 180. He rushed forward, personally freeing me from the guards, and even brushed the wrinkles from my shirt, his face contorted into a mask of false sincerity. Leo, my boy, I had too much to drink. I was talking nonsense. Please don't take it to heart. That agreement, it was just a draft. We were just spitballing ideas. He spun on the headmaster, his voice sharp. Headmaster, there will be no more of this. Summit Crest is an educational institution, not a marketplace for talent. Do you hear me? The headmaster nodded furiously. Yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. Stratford. A storm that should have destroyed me had vanished in a thin air less than 10 minutes after my 3 roommates appeared. Chase came over and nudged me with his elbow, whispering, "Not bad, Leo. You look all quiet and nerdy, but you've got a spine. I respect that." Alex just smiled at me. It's over. Ethan put his phone away, backed up in triplicate, cloud, local, and on a server in Switzerland. I looked at the 3 of them, a lump forming in my throat. I couldn't speak. I thought I was fighting alone, throwing a stone against a mountain. I never imagined that behind me stood 3 gods, and they had effortlessly pulled me back from the abyss. The gala ended on a sour note. 8. I was silent on the way back to the dorm. Chase slung an arm around my neck. What's on your mind, Leo? Blown away by how awesome we are? From now on, you can walk around this school like you own the place. Anyone messes with you, you just drop my name. I shook my head and quietly asked the question that had been swirling in my mind. Why? Why did you help me? We weren't from the same world. The best I could treat them to was a cheap bowl of noodles. In return, they offered me protection that was priceless. The transaction was completely unbalanced from the start. Chase stared at me for a second, then burst out laughing. Help you? What do you mean, help you? You're my roommate. You're my boy. They mess with you. They're messing with Chase Cunningham. You think I need a reason for that? Alex smiled. Leo, did you forget? The first week of school, our internet went out. You stayed up half the night using your phone as a hotspot so we could finish our ranking match. And when Chase had food poisoning in the middle of the night, you were the one who carried him to the infirmary. Ethan added, you also got me the limited edition figurine from that anime convention. You wrote the script for the bot that snagged it. I was stunned. They remembered all those little things, things I thought were insignificant. I thought I was trying to trade my utility for their friendship, but I never realized that, to them, those small acts, done with no expectation of reward, were what friendship was actually about. I looked at the three of them, my eyes starting to sting. It turned out I wasn't alone after all. But before I could even process the warmth of that feeling, I realized things were far from over. Warren Stratford's retreat was just the calm before the storm. The next day, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was frantic, choked with sobs. "Lau, you have to come home. Your father. Something's happened to your father at the construction site." 9. A roar filled my ears, and the phone nearly slipped from my hand. "Mom, calm down. What happened to Dad?" I yelled, my voice cracking. "The scaffolding. It collapsed. He fell. He fell from high up, and now he's in the hospital, in surgery." My mom was sobbing uncontrollably. "The doctor said, he said it's really bad. They told us to prepare for the worst." "Which hospital?" "City General. Please hurry, Leo. I'm so scared." After hanging up, the world started spinning. My dad, the man who had bent his back under the scorching sun for me, the man whose calloused hands had held up my entire world. I couldn't let my thoughts go any further. I bolted out of the dorm, not even thinking to tell my roommates. There was only one thought in my head: get to the hospital. I have to see my dad. Summit Crest was in the suburbs, miles from City General Hospital. I ran to the main gate to catch a cab, only to realize I had just a few crumpled dollars in my pocket, not even enough for the base fare. Despair washed over me like a tidal wave. I collapsed onto the curb, hugging my head in my hands as tears I could no longer hold back streamed down my face. Why me? Why my family? It had to be Stratford. It had to be him. I humiliated him in public yesterday. He couldn't let it go, so he took his revenge on my dad. For people like him, such dirty tricks were disgustingly easy. An intense, burning hatred mixed with a profound sense of powerlessness tore me apart. I hated Stratford for his depravity, but I hated myself even more for my weakness. My academic achievements, my perfect scores, they were as fragile as paper in the face of absolute power. Just as I was about to break down completely, a black Maybach pulled up in front of me. The window rolled down to reveal Alex's gentle but urgent face. "Leo, get in." Chase and Ethan were in the car too. Chase's usual playful smirk was gone, replaced by a grim intensity. Ethan was furiously typing on his laptop. I stared at them, stunned. "You guys, no time for that. Get in." Chase leaned over and yanked me into the car. "We tried calling you, but you didn't pick up. We thought something had happened to you. Alex's family contact helped us find your mom's number." The car shot forward like an arrow. I sat on the plush leather seat, my body still shaking uncontrollably. Alex handed me a bottle of water. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I've already contacted the chief of surgery at City General. Your father will receive the best possible care. I've also arranged for the country's top orthopedic and neurosurgery specialists to fly in. They're on their way to the airport now." I looked up at Alex, my voice hoarse. "Alex, thank you, but it won't matter. I think what happened to my dad was no accident." I told them my suspicion about Warren Stratford. After hearing me out, Chase slammed his fist on the seat. "Damn it, that bastard Stratford. He really did it. He messed with my boy's family. He's got a death wish." He immediately pulled out his phone and called his father. "Dad, do you know a guy named Warren Stratford?" "Yeah, the guy in education. He hurt my friend. I need you to shut down every single one of his construction projects. Now. Yes, all of them. And I want a full audit of his company. Find every piece of dirt you can on his tax evasion." Hanging up, Chase's eyes were blazing. "Leo, don't you worry. I'll make him pay for this." Meanwhile, on Ethan's laptop, a blueprint of my dad's construction site had appeared, along with streams of data. "Found it," he said, pushing up his glasses, his voice ice cold. 3 of the bolts securing the scaffolding were substandard. Their load capacity was well below the national safety standard. Furthermore, 5 minutes before the accident, the site security camera feed was interrupted for exactly 30 seconds. It was deliberate. I realized instantly. There's more. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard, and a company name appeared on the screen. The contractor for the site is a company called Apex Construction. Its parent company, after piercing the corporate veil 3 layers deep, is ultimately controlled by Warren Stratford's brother-in-law. The proof was undeniable. This was a conspiracy from top to bottom, a cruel, inhuman act of revenge aimed directly at me. After hearing this, Alex's usually calm face took on a chilling frost for the first time. He took out his phone again and dialed that familiar number. "Grandfather, it's me. Yes, I'm still at school. A friend's father was in a work accident. We suspect foul play. Yes, it involves a board member at Summit Crest, Warren Stratford. I don't need you to intervene. I'm just requesting permission to use the family's resources. Just once. Yes, I want to get to the bottom of this. Yes, grandfather. I want to make him pay the price." After he hung up, Alex looked at me, his eyes firm. "Leo, do you trust me?" I looked at him, then at Chase and Ethan beside me. Before today, my life had been a solitary battle on a narrow bridge. I thought I could only rely on myself, on my own blood and sweat, to fight for a sliver of a future. But now, they had shown me with their actions that I was not alone. Behind me stood a real estate titan, an immeasurable political power, and a technological force that could penetrate anything. I nodded forcefully, tears of gratitude streaming down my face. "I trust you." This time, I was no longer a helpless victim. I was going to fight back, and I was going to make Warren Stratford pay in blood. 10. When we arrived at City General, my dad was already in the ICU. My mom was slumped on the floor in the hallway, looking like all the life had been drained from her. I rushed over to help her up. The moment she saw me, she collapsed into my arms, wailing. The chief of surgery, alerted by Alex, met us personally. He brought both the best and worst news. The good news was that the team of specialists from D.C., arranged by Alex's family, had taken over and stabilized my dad's condition. His life was saved for now. The bad news was that my dad was paralyzed from the waist down. He would likely spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. Unless a miracle happened. A miracle? I grabbed the surgeon's arm. What kind of miracle? The surgeon looked hesitant. There's a cutting-edge biotech lab in Switzerland researching a form of nerve regeneration therapy, but it's still in the experimental phase. The success rate is extremely low, and the cost is astronomical. My heart sank into a black hole. Astronomical, for me, meant impossible. Chase, who had been listening, pulled out a black credit card. "Money is not an issue. Contact them immediately. I don't care what it costs. We'll pay for it." The surgeon stared, first at Chase, then at Alex, and finally nodded. "Okay, I'll make the arrangements right now." After getting my mom settled, the four of us stepped outside the hospital. The cold night air hit my face, but I felt nothing. Inside, a fire was raging. "Warren Stratford. Where's he right now?" I asked. A red dot glowed on the map on Ethan's laptop, pinpointing a high-end private club. The Sovereign Club. He's with his brother-in-law and several executives from Apex Construction. Probably celebrating. Celebrating my father's paralysis. Celebrating my despair. My knuckles turned white. "Let's go," I said. It was the only word I needed. Chase didn't hesitate. He started the car. That bastard. Tonight, he's going to learn a lesson he'll never forget. 11. The Sovereign Club was the most exclusive private establishment in the city, members only, with tight security. Our car was stopped at the gate. A guard leaned out, his expression arrogant. "Members only. No entry without a reservation." Chase rolled down the window and tossed out a black card. "Get your manager out here. Now." The guard's face changed instantly upon seeing the card. He fumbled for his walkie-talkie, his voice filled with panic. "Boss, it's Mr. Cunningham's son. He's here." Less than a minute later, a portly, middle-aged man in a silk jacket came running out, bowing and scraping before Chase's window. "Mr. Cunningham, what an honor. If you had called ahead, I would have cleared the place for you." "Cut the crap," Chase said impatiently. "Which room is Warren Stratford in?" "The Celestial Suite." "Sir, do you have business with Mr. Stratford?" "I do," Chase said with a cold smile. "I'm here to settle a debt." Led by the club's manager, the four of us walked unimpeded to the door of the Celestial Suite. The door was slightly ajar, and we could hear Warren Stratford's triumphant laughter from within. "That broke kid, Leo Vance, thought he could challenge me? With one flick of my finger, I can ruin his entire family." He's probably on his knees in some hospital, crying his eyes out right now. Brilliant, Mr. Stratford. You have to pull the weed out by its roots, his brother-in-law chimed in obsequiously. He's just a little punk. Thinks getting the top score makes him somebody special. In our world, he's not even qualified to be a dog. Ha ha ha. The room was filled with joyous laughter. I couldn't take it anymore. I kicked the door open. Bang! The explosive sound cut the laughter short. Everyone in the room spun around in shock. When Warren Stratford saw me, and Chase, Ethan, and Alex standing behind me, the smile froze on his face. How'd you get in here? He stammered, scrambling to his feet. I didn't answer him. I walked toward him, step by step. Stratford, I said, stopping right in front of him, my voice terrifyingly calm. My father's legs. That was you, wasn't it? Stratford's face was ashen. He took an instinctive step back, trying to bluff his way out. I don't know what you're talking about. Your father's legs? What does that have to do with me? Nothing. Ethan stepped forward and tossed a tablet onto the table. It was playing an audio recording. It was the entire conversation between Stratford and his brother-in-law, plotting how to stage the accident, how to use substandard materials, how to disable the security cameras. You could even hear the club's waiters in the background. Stratford looked like he had seen a ghost, pointing a trembling finger at Ethan. When did you? The moment you walked into the club, Ethan said flatly. I planted a bug on you. Stratford and his brother-in-law were pale with shock. Chase cracked his knuckles, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Well now, Mr. Stratford, let's talk about compensation. He pulled me behind him and held up one finger. First, you will cover all of my friend's father's future medical expenses, including the full cost of his treatment in Switzerland. Let's start at $100 million. If that's not enough, we'll add more. Second, he held up another finger. For the emotional distress, lost wages, and suffering of Leo's family, I'll round it off to a neat $500 million. Any problem with that? Stratford's lips trembled. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Third, Chase's smile turned vicious. You and this weasel of a brother-in-law are going to get on your knees and apologize to my friend. You're going to keep bowing until he says you can stop. Don't push us too far. Stratford's brother-in-law blustered, trying to sound tough. Chase didn't even look at him. He just nodded to the bodyguards at the door. Two massive men, both well over 6 feet tall, stepped inside. They grabbed Stratford and his brother-in-law like they were children and forced them to their knees in front of me. I looked down at the two men, trembling on the floor like leaves in a storm. But I felt no pleasure, no thrill of revenge. Only a deep, hollow sadness. Could beating them at their own game really give me back my father's health? Just then, Alex, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it dropped the temperature in the room to freezing. Kneeling and apologizing is just the appetizer. He looked at Stratford and said calmly, Mr. Stratford, you probably don't know this yet, but half an hour ago, Cunningham Holdings announced the unilateral termination of all contracts with your companies. Due to the quality issues with your building materials, their legal team will be suing you for $3 billion in damages. Stratford's head snapped up, his face a mask of disbelief. Alex continued, 15 minutes ago, a team from the IRS entered your corporate headquarters and seized all your financial records. They already have all the evidence of your tax evasion and asset offshoring from the past 10 years. 10 minutes ago, the FBI arrested your cousin, the one who's a director at the City Planning Commission. 5 minutes ago, your family's offshore accounts in Switzerland were frozen. And right now, Alex glanced at his watch, his tone casual, you should be receiving a news alert on your phone. The headline will be something like, Prominent businessman Warren Stratford under federal investigation for multiple felonies. As if on cue, Stratford's phone buzzed. He picked it up with a shaking hand and looked at the screen. Then his eyes rolled back in his head, and he collapsed, unconscious. Warren Stratford was finished. Overnight, a business empire that had dominated the city crumbled to dust. He and his entire network of corruption were uprooted, and the ones who had done it were my 3 seemingly carefree roommates. Chase's father had used the overwhelming force of capital to pull out Stratford's foundations. Ethan's technology acted as a silent, invisible scalpel, dissecting all his secrets. And Alex, with just a few phone calls, had mobilized an unimaginably vast network that descended from above, utterly crushing Stratford. This was their world. They didn't solve problems by arguing. They solved them with power. Stratford's downfall sent shockwaves through Summit Crest Academy. The scandal of the Vanguard Project was exposed. The headmaster was fired, and the school's board of directors was completely overhauled. The entire incident was officially framed as the actions of a single rogue board member, leaving the school's reputation spotless. Kevin Price also dropped out. His father's company had been part of Stratford's network. With the big tree gone, the monkeys scattered. Their family went bankrupt overnight, buried in debt. The last time I saw him was at the school gate. He was dragging a suitcase, his eyes hollow. He looked at me. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just lowered his head and scurried away. I didn't feel any pity for him. He had chosen his own path. If you gamble everything on a shortcut to the sky, you have to be prepared for the fall. And I became the most talked about figure in the storm. Everyone knew that I, a scholarship kid, had taken down the untouchable Warren Stratford, but they also knew it wasn't me who did it. It was the three people standing behind me. I became a legend at Summit Crest Academy, a taboo that no one dared to touch. My dad's treatment went smoothly. Chase's family chartered a private jet and flew my entire family, along with a team of top American doctors, to Switzerland. Upon learning of our connections, the biotech lab made my father their #1 priority, using their most advanced experimental technology on him. All the expenses were paid for by Stratford's frozen assets. He was also forced to pay a massive sum in compensation to my family. My mom stared at the string of zeros in her new bank account, completely dazed. She kept grabbing my hand and asking, "Son, are we dreaming?" I smiled and told her, "No, it's not a dream, and the good days are just beginning." 14. I didn't let my studies slide while we were in Switzerland. Alex arranged for me to attend my classes online. Every day, between taking care of my dad, I devoured knowledge like a man starved. I even sat in on the lab's internal seminars. Using the programming skills I'd picked up from Ethan, I helped them optimize their data analysis model, improving its efficiency by 30%. The lab's chief scientist, a Nobel laureate with a big white beard, was incredibly impressed. He even offered to take me on as his protege if I stayed in Switzerland, telling me my future in bioengineering would be limitless. I declined. My roots were in America. My battlefield was at Summit Crest. 3 months later, my dad's treatment had a major breakthrough. He could feel sensation in his legs again. The doctor said with continued physical therapy, there was a very good chance he would walk again. I returned to the States with my recovering father and my overjoyed mother. Chase, Ethan, and Alex picked me up at the airport. Chase greeted me with a massive bear hug. "Now, you're finally back. I missed you, man. With you gone, there was no one to explain my homework to me." Ethan was as stoic as ever, but I could see a warmth in his eyes. He handed me a flash drive. "I optimized the data model for your father's physical therapy regimen. It can connect to the assistive devices on his legs and should increase efficiency by another 15%. Alex smiled and clapped my shoulder. "Welcome back. It's all over." I looked at them and nodded. Yes, it was all over. Warren Stratford was ancient history. My family's crisis had been resolved. It seemed I could return to my simple life as a straight A student. But deep down I knew this wasn't over. Stratford was just a pawn. The mastermind behind the Vanguard Project, the one who treated scholarship students like us as commodities to be selected and purchased, was still hiding in the shadows. Stratford's fall would have certainly gotten his attention. Who was he? And would he just let this go? I had a feeling that a much larger storm was brewing. And this time, I, Leo Vance, would not be a bystander or someone to be protected. This time, I would be one of the players at the table. 15. Back at school, life seemed to return to normal. Chase still slept through class and guessed his way through exams. Ethan remained lost in his world of machines and code. Alex was still the gentle, refined friend, acting as if nothing had ever happened. But I knew this piece was just a facade. Ever since Stratford's downfall, I could feel a pair of invisible eyes watching us from the darkness. Alex became more cautious. His family's car took us to and from school, and the route changed every day. Ethan installed a sophisticated warning system in our dorm room that I didn't understand, its screen flickering with complex data streams. He said it could detect any abnormal electromagnetic signals. Chase wasn't as flamboyant as before. He told me that several of his dad's recent overseas projects had been hit by malicious short sellers from an unknown source, causing heavy losses. While it didn't damage the core of their business, it was a clear warning. Our enemy was more powerful and more patient than we had imagined. He was waiting for us to make a mistake. And I was waiting too. I was waiting for an opportunity to lure this big fish out into the open. That opportunity came sooner than I expected. 16. A mysterious hacker collective calling themselves Loki, which claimed it could disrupt the global financial order, suddenly emerged. They announced that in 3 days, they would launch an all-out assault on the New York Stock Exchange, crippling it and triggering an unprecedented financial crisis. The world was in an uproar. Intelligence agencies and cybersecurity firms globally went on high alert. But just as everyone's attention was fixed on the NYSE, Loki issued a second statement. In it, they named 3 families: the Cunningham Holdings, the Reed family's tech conglomerate, and the political faction once led by Alex Monroe's grandfather. Loki's leader claimed that the heirs of these 3 families were all students at Summit Crest Academy. He used this as leverage, demanding that the 3 families pay a ransom of $100 billion into a designated account within 3 days. If they didn't, he would release all of their most sensitive secrets: illegal financial transactions, technological backdoors, and political scandals damaging enough to topple governments. At the end of the statement, there was a photo. It was of the 4 of us, eating in the school cafeteria. My face was clearly circled in red, and below it a single line of text, and our eyes among them. In that instant, my blood ran cold. It was a brilliant, poisonous plan. Kill 3 birds with 1 stone. First, extort a fortune. Second, attack their families. And third, the most vicious part, turn us against each other. By marking me as their inside man, they were aiming for the heart of our friendship. My background, my computer skills, my initial resentment of their world, all of it could be twisted into the perfect motive for betrayal. If they believed it, the trust we had built would shatter in an instant. I would become their greatest enemy. And if they didn't believe it, how could they possibly explain to their powerful families why they were putting their faith in a poor kid who came from nowhere? I stare at the news, my hands and feet turning to ice. To know the secrets of all 3 families, to be capable of orchestrating a cyber attack of this magnitude, and to know my exact relationship with them. This person, this organization, had to be the true master behind the Vanguard project. He didn't want money. He wanted to destroy us. To destroy this friendship that cross-class divides, to eliminate this unpredictable variable. He wanted to prove to the world that people from different worlds could never be friends. A rat belongs in the sewer. Panic seized me. It felt like the end of the world. How could I explain this? How could I prove my innocence? 17. As I was spiraling, the dorm room door opened. Chase, Ethan, and Alex walked in together. The usual easygoing expressions were gone from their faces. Chase's eyes were bloodshot, as if he hadn't slept all night. Ethan's face was pale, but his gaze was as sharp as ever. Alex was grim, radiating an aura of power so intense I could barely look at him. The air in the room was heavy and suffocating, like the dead calm before a hurricane. I looked at them, opened my mouth, but didn't know what to say. I finally managed to get one word out. Shut up. Chase cut me off. His voice was hoarse, but it held no trace of doubt. I trust you. Ethan pushed up his glasses, his words concise. Data doesn't lie. All your network activity is monitored by me. You're clean. Alex walked over and stood in front of me, looking me directly in the eyes. Leo, this isn't your fault, he said, each word deliberate. They're coming after us, and they're using you as the wedge to drive us apart. Tears streamed down my face. Relief. They didn't doubt me. Faced with a global news story and a vicious, targeted accusation, they hadn't wavered. They chose to believe me, unconditionally. This is no time to cry. Alex's voice pulled me back to reality. Loki gave us 3 days, but we only have 10 minutes. I was stunned. 10 minutes. Chase gave a grim smile and cracked his knuckles. That's right, 10 minutes. Because in 10 minutes, I'm going to make them realize that trying to extort us was the stupidest decision of their lives. He picked up his phone and called his father. "Dad, did you track Loki's account?" A steady voice came from the other end. "We did. It's a crypto mixing pool routed through a dozen countries and hundreds of shell corporations. It's complex, but not untraceable. I've already spoken to a few old friends on Wall Street and a couple of sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East. We're preparing to pull their plug." Chase nodded. "Good. In 10 minutes, I want every single dollar in that pool to have vanished." On the other side of the room, Ethan had opened his laptop. Code scrolled across the screen so fast it was a blur. "Found it. Loki's main server is in a decommissioned geothermal power plant in Iceland. They're using quantum encryption. Very hard to crack." However, a cold smirk touched Ethan's lips. They seemed to have forgotten that my family's satellite network just completed a global infrared imaging system upgrade yesterday. He hit the enter key. "I've activated the Archangel system. A high-power microwave beam is now targeting those coordinates. In 10 minutes, every piece of electronic equipment, there will be a pile of molten slag." Finally, it was Alex's turn. He answered a call, listening quietly. After hanging up, he looked at me. "Loki's leader has been identified. A rogue agent from a former Eastern Bloc intelligence agency. Codename Courier. His real boss is the Elysium Foundation." The Elysium Foundation? The name sounded vaguely familiar. "Yes," Alex confirmed. "A secret society composed of several dozen of the world's most powerful old money families. Summit Crest's Vanguard project is just one of their many talent acquisition programs. Warren Stratford was just one of their countless agents in this country." I understood. Our enemy was the small handful of people at the very top of the global pyramid. Then what do we? I felt a pressure I had never known before. Alex smiled, a smile that held a confidence and authority far beyond his years. "Just now, my grandfather and several of his old colleagues issued a red notice for his arrest through diplomatic channels. At the same time, he paused, then delivered a line I would never forget. A team of U.S. Special Operations Forces has surrounded all 17 of Loki's known global hideouts. In 10 minutes, they will move in simultaneously." In that moment, I looked at the three of them. One phone call could freeze the global flow of capital. A few lines of code could physically destroy a hardened, air-gapped server. A single directive could mobilize the full might of the state. This mysterious organization, Loki, which had threatened to upend the world order, would be eradicated in less than 10 minutes. I finally understood how shallow my perception of their world had been. This wasn't just a one-sided fight. This was a god deleting a bug from his own creation. 10 minutes. It felt like an eternity and an instant all at once. My phone was silent. No news alerts. The world was eerily quiet. Chase put down his phone and let out a long breath, his usual cocky grin returning. "Done. That bastard's crypto wallet is cleaner than my conscience now. Those Wall Street wolves picked his bones clean." Ethan closed his laptop. "Target coordinates are dark," he said flatly. "Life sign monitors show a dozen individuals fleeing the scene at high speed. I suspect they lost control of their bladders." Alex's phone vibrated. He glanced at it and then smiled at me. "The net is closed. 17 locations, all personnel and equipment secured." Courier himself was apprehended on his way to the airport. In an hour, he'll be having conversation at a place he'd very much rather not be. It was over. It was really over. The crisis that felt like the apocalypse, the meticulously planned, venomous conspiracy, had been turned to dust while they were chatting in our dorm room. I slumped into my chair, all the strength drained from my body. The villain's entire arc, from introduction to annihilation, lasted less than 10 minutes. You couldn't even call it a war. It was pest control. Chase came over and clapped me on the shoulder, grinning. "Spooked you, didn't I, Leo? Come on, let's go get some tacos to calm your nerves." "Tacos?" I blinked. "Yeah," Chase said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "After a day like this, you gotta get something greasy to celebrate. And to get rid of the bad juju." I looked at the three of them, at Chase's sincere grin, at Ethan silently packing his gear, at the gentle amusement in Alex's eyes, and suddenly, the absurdity of it all felt incredibly real. We were like four guys who had just finished a pickup basketball game, not destroyed an international criminal organization. We took Alex's family's unassuming black Lincoln Navigator not to some fancy restaurant, but to the bustling street of food trucks just outside the school's back gate. We found an empty spot, ordered 4 massive servings of carne asada tacos, and grabbed 4 ice-cold Cokes. "Hey, extra onions and cilantro," Chase yelled, sounding less like a scion of wealth and more like a starving college kid. The steaming tacos arrived, the aroma of grilled meat, lime, and spices filling the air. I picked one up and took a huge bite. It was delicious. "What are you thinking about, Leo?" Chase asked around a mouthful of food. "You think that Elysium, whatever it's called, will leave us alone now?" Alex took a sip of his Coke and shook his head. "They won't." Chase and I both stopped eating and looked at him. Alex explained calmly, "We only took out one of their pawns today. The Elysium Foundation is like a hydra. You cut off one head, and another one grows back. They won't give up on the Vanguard project, because for them, identifying and controlling the world's top intellectual resources is fundamental to maintaining their power." My heart sank again. "So, what do we do?" Alex smiled, and his eyes seemed to glow. "Leo, don't you get it yet? This was never about us. It was always about you." 19. Me? I was completely lost. "Yes, you," Alex said. "Chase, Ethan, and I were born into this system. Our families are either members of the Elysium Foundation or its partners and rivals. All we can do is use the rules of the system to protect you from the system itself. But we can't change it." He paused, then continued. "But you're different. You come from outside the system. Your mind, your will, your resilience, those are your greatest weapons. The Vanguard Project wanted to control you precisely because they fear unpredictable variables like you." Ethan interjected, his voice still cool, but his words hit me like a thunderbolt. "I analyzed all of the Vanguard Project's data for the past 20 years. They identified 197 top talents like you. Of those, 188 chose to accept the deal and became their gilded pets. 8 chose to resist and were eventually eliminated through various accidents. You are the 198, Teach, and you're the only one who resisted and is still alive. Because of us," Chase said, puffing out his chest. "Because you have awesome friends like us." "It's not just because of us." Alex shook his head, his gaze fixed on me, intense and serious. "It's because when you were faced with Warren Stratford's threats and promises, you chose to throw that glass of juice. When you thought you had nothing, you defended the most valuable thing you own, your free will. That is what they truly fear, and that is why we are willing to stand with you against the entire system. We can protect you for a time, but not forever. Ultimately, this is a path you have to walk yourself." I sat there in stunned silence, my taco forgotten in my hand. I had always thought I was the lucky one, the one they had saved. I had always thought my struggles were worthless in the face of their immense power. It was only in this moment that I finally understood. They chose to stand with me not because I was weak and needed their pity or protection. It was the opposite. They chose me because they saw in me something they themselves lacked, the strength to crawl out of the mud and say no to the entire world. I wasn't their pet. I was their ally. And maybe, just maybe, I was their hope for breaking this rigid, stratified world. 20. We talked for a long time that night. We talked about our ideals, our futures, and our seemingly impossible dreams. Chase said he didn't want to inherit his family's real estate empire anymore. He wanted to use his family's money to invest in young people with real dreams, people like me. He was going to be a dream investor. Ethan said he was going to make all his technological patents open source. He believed technology should serve all of humanity, not be a tool for a select few to profit from. He was going to start a technological equality movement. Alex said he would follow the same path as his grandfather, but he wasn't going to maintain the system. He was going to change it piece by piece from the inside. He was going to create new rules within the old ones. And me? I looked at them, and for the first time, I saw my own future with perfect clarity. I'm going to get into the best university and study the most advanced bioengineering, I said, my voice steady and firm. Then, I'm going to cure cancer, Alzheimer's, and every other disease that humanity currently can't defeat. I'm going to make sure my dad, and the millions of ordinary people like him, can live with dignity. The Elysium Foundation wants to control talent and monopolize technology? Fine. I'll create more talent. I'll turn cutting-edge technology into something as accessible and cheap as tap water. They want to be gods and treat us like ants. Well, I'm going to lead the ants, and we're going to pull them down from their thrones. After I finished, the other three were silent. After a long moment, Chase was the first to laugh. He raised his Coke bottle. Damn, Leo, you're more hardcore than all three of us combined. Ethan raised his bottle too, his eyes shining brightly behind his glasses. Alex smiled and clinked his bottle against ours. Clink! The sound of 4 glass bottles meeting in the noisy night of the food truck alley was crisp and clear. It was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. 21. On graduation day, Summit Crest Academy held a grand ceremony. As the sole recipient of the Student of Excellence Award, I stood at the podium. My roommates had ganged up to nominate and vote for me, essentially forcing the title upon me. I stood there in my graduation gown, looking out at the sea of faces. My mom and dad were in the front row. My dad could now stand with a cane, and his face was beaming with pride. My roommates were there too. Chase was making faces at me. Ethan gave me a subtle thumbs up, and Alex watched with a warm, proud smile. There were other, unfamiliar faces in the crowd. I knew that among them were new observers from the Elysium Foundation, circling like vultures over any place a genius might appear. My eyes met theirs without a trace of fear. My speech was short. I spoke clearly into the microphone. My name is Leo Vance. Today, I graduate from Summit Crest. In the future, I will dedicate myself to one thing: to ensuring that knowledge and technology are no longer the privileges of a few, but the birthright of all humanity. If anyone wants to stand in my way, let them try. With that, I walked off the stage. The applause was thunderous. I knew it was for me, but it was also for every unconquerable soul out there. After graduation, the 4 of us went our separate ways. With the top SAT score in the country, I was accepted into MIT's biology program, where I also double majored in computer science. I absorbed knowledge with a ferocious hunger. Chase went to Harvard Business School, but instead of studying finance, he started a venture capital firm called Prometheus Ventures. The very first project he funded was my research lab. He said my brain was the most valuable asset on the planet. Ethan also went to MIT. He turned down offers from every major tech giant and founded an open-source community called the Agora, dedicated to making cutting-edge AI and drone technology accessible to the public. His community became the powerful computational backbone for my lab. Alex stayed in the States, attending a special academy designed to groom future leaders. We saw less of each other, but I knew he was walking a difficult but noble path with unwavering resolve. We were scattered across the globe, but our bond never weakened. In my sophomore year, my nerve regeneration project hit a wall. I couldn't solve a critical protein structure. Ethan used his Archangel satellite system to screen billions of chemical compounds worldwide, finally finding the perfect molecular key. In my junior year, my research required a massive capital investment for new equipment. Without a second thought, Chase sold the private jet his dad was about to buy him and wired the money to my account. "What's a plane compared to your research?" he said. "I'll just hitch a ride on yours someday." In my senior year, my research findings sent shockwaves through the international scientific community and attracted the unwanted attention of the Elysium Foundation. They tried to use their influence over academic authorities to steal my research. It was Alex, using his own network, who got wind of it ahead of time. He quietly defused the crisis and turned the tables, exposing the corrupt academic they had bought, ruining his career. The 4 of us worked like 4 interlocking gears. I was the core engine, driving the breakthroughs and innovation. Chase was the power plant, providing limitless fuel. Ethan was the supercomputer, offering precise navigation and computational support. And Alex was the impenetrable shield, protecting our ship from the storms. In our own ways, we were challenging that ancient, monolithic system. 22. 10 years later, I stood on a stage in Stockholm, accepting the Nobel Prize in Medicine. My team had successfully developed a low-cost, mass-producible nerve regeneration agent, allowing humanity to conquer paralysis. My dad was the first clinical beneficiary. He was there today, sitting in the audience with my mom, tears of joy streaming down their faces. My acceptance speech was once again short. I thank my country and my team. But today, the people I want to thank the most are my 3 college roommates. They taught me that while one person's efforts may seem small, when a group of like-minded friends stand together, we can change the world. This technology belongs to all of humanity. From this day forward, the term unaffordable medicine will be a thing of the past. The applause was long and loud. I knew that, in the audience, the representatives from the Elysium Foundation must have looked furious. Because I hadn't just solved a medical problem. I had shattered the walls they had built with capital and technology. I had delivered on my promise to turn life-saving science into tap water, flowing to every corner of the globe. After the ceremony, back in my hotel room, I met with my 3 roommates. 10 years had passed. We had all changed, yet somehow we hadn't changed at all. Chase was leaner, with the quiet confidence of a seasoned entrepreneur, but he still had that same goofy grin. His Prometheus Ventures had become one of the most successful VC firms in the world, launching countless world-changing companies. Ethan no longer wore glasses. His eyes, no longer so cold, held a certain warmth. His Agora community had become the largest open-source tech platform on the planet, with over 1 billion users, truly achieving technological equality. Alex wore a simple, impeccably tailored suit. His aura was calmer, but his eyes were as deep as the ocean. He was a rising star within the system, using his wisdom and courage to drive profound change. We looked at each other and smiled. Leo, you're the man. Chase came over and crushed me in a hug. A Nobel Prize. I'm going to send you a check for $1 million. I laughed and punched him on the shoulder. Can't you be more creative? It's always money with you. What else is there? Chase asked, feigning innocence. It's what I do. Ethan handed me a hard drive. This is the data model for the version 2.0 regeneration agent. Integrated with predictive AI, it should increase the cure rate by another 0.1%. Consider it a congratulatory gift. I took it reverently. This is more valuable than any gift. Alex looked at us and smiled. The road is just beginning. He was right. The road was just beginning. Curing paralysis was only the first step. Next came cancer, genetic disorders, aging. Countless mountains were still waiting for us to climb. The Elysium Foundation wouldn't give up either. They would find more subtle, more powerful ways to maintain their world order. But what did that matter? I turned and looked out the window at the city lights, a glittering river of stars on the earth. I suddenly remembered that question I had asked myself so long ago. What was the point of fighting so hard to get into an elite school? Now, I had the answer. The point wasn't to climb above others, or to squeeze my way into their glittering, top-tier world. The point was that it allowed me to meet them. It allowed 4 souls from different worlds, who should have never crossed paths, to collide and ignite a light bright enough to illuminate the world. My hard work wasn't worthless. It was my ticket to the battlefield. And their friendship, priceless and unconditional, was the ultimate weapon that would allow me to win the war. I turned back to them and raised my glass. To us. To the future. Outside, a new sun was slowly rising above the horizon.